And we're live. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Solvable Mysteries Podcast. My name is Juras. As every week, I'm joined by my co host, Glenn Highcove, who is joining me all the way from California. Dude, how is everything on your end? And are you excited to talk about a very mysterious case this week?
Yeah, this is a really interesting case, and I think the only thing that was disappointing about it was that there wasn't more of some of my favorite YouTubers episodes on it. If that makes sense, like there wasn't I couldn't find an actual Stephanie Harlow episode on this, though she did pop up in my research. So yeah, I'm really interested to see, what we both think about this, and then kind of the audience reaction after this.
Yeah, well, when we pick out new cases every week, and we usually go through our list of cases that we have compiled over, the week or so, our own suggestions and the ones left by our audience members, we kind of ran into Faith Hedgepeth homicide case. And yeah, upon reading the short description of that case, I was like, Jesus, there are so many moving pieces, so many things happening in this case. How the hell did we not run into this before? Because off the bat, my initial question for you, dude, is have you ever heard about this case? Because I feel like this case could be like how should I put it, like a Delphi murders level of case, given how many crazy clues and weird and really creepy situations happening in this case. I was like, how the hell have I not heard about this case? So have you?
No, never. And like you said, there's all this kind of seemingly evidence, and even a recording, though the recording itself is somewhat controversial.
Yeah, multiple recordings. You could pretty much say, right? Because we have that 911 call, we have another pocket dial situation happening, an accidental call from the victim's phone to her friend, but the friend couldn't pick it up, so it went straight to voicemail. So we have a really cryptic voicemail happening as well. There's a lot of things happening. So, Faith Hedgepeth, I think we could definitely jump into the timeline, a little bit background on Faith. So she was an undergraduate student. By the way, at the time of her death, she was 19 years of age. She was an undergraduate student in her third year at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So Chapel Hill is actually a small town in North Carolina, not really a super small town. I think it has like around 50,000 inhabitants. Now, she was found in her apartment by a friend on the morning of September 7th, 2012. So this is happening, a good 9 years from now, and it's still unsolved, which is crazy given how many clues and, DNA evidence the police have in this case. Now, she had been beaten over the head with a blunt instrument, later found to be an empty liquor bottle. I believe that was a Bacardi bottle, and evidence of semen and other male DNA was present at the crime scene and pretty much all over the apartment that she was staying at. Now, the last time she was known for certain to be alive was much earlier in that same morning when she went to bed after returning from a local nightclub with her roommate. So, a lot of moving pieces here. We will delve deeper into the timeline. Before we go over the timeline, and as usual, I will just, go through the points in the timeline, and I will throw it back to you because I definitely want to hear your opinion regarding certain points in the timeline. Before we delve into like the nitty gritty details of this case, anything you want to add, or maybe I missed something when I gave like the general presentation of what we're about to discuss today.
No, that's a good interview, and I think what you teased just now in terms of some of the immediate high point, like high points, let's say bullets, in terms of like what to look out for. Yeah, that's going to be what is kind of the main theme of the day is lots of clues, lots of evidence, and a, and lots of suspects that bafflingly don't match up with the actual DNA evidence. So it really is a big mystery at this point.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump into it. I think we should begin at the evening of September 6th, 2012. So just throwing it back a few seconds. I said that Faith was found dead on September 7th around midday, around 11 a.m. But now let's trace it back one day before to September 6th. And the first time stamp I have is 5:45 p.m. on the previous day. So Faith was attending a rush event for a campus chapter called Alpha Pi Omega, which is basically a historically Native American sorority. And she was hoping to join that sorority. So she leaves at around 7:15 p.m. in the early evening. So just before we move past this point, anything you wanna add to that? Because I personally feel like the fact that she attended a rush event for a campus chapter, a historically Native American sorority, I didn't find this to be relevant to the case all that much, because I don't think it's in any way, shape, connected. On the Google Maps, we, by the way, do have the Alpha P Omega chapter, so it's this little area marker right here for everyone who is speaking on the YouTube channel, because we're showing the map. Dude, anything you want to add to that?
I wonder if that's thrown in there because of the possibility that maybe she had, not intentionally necessarily rubbed somebody the wrong way at the event. I'm just guessing. I wonder if too for us, because sororities, like not everybody gets picked, but I wonder if you're Native American and it's sort of a Native American sorority that, has less people to pick from for its membership. I wonder if there's like more pressure to let you in. Yeah, weird speculation. Do you guys have fraternities and sororities at
Nah,
your colleges? Okay.
we have no idea what that even is, because we don't
Oh, okay.
have our system is very simplistic. It's literally just like school all over again. You still live at your own place and you don't really move out. So all sororities and all of these things, they're a complete mystery, I believe, to everyone who's not from North America.
Okay, I mean, without belaboring it, I'll just do a quick summary that fraternities and sororities are sort of like social clubs for college students. They're a way to get to know a great number of people, but they get to pick their membership. So while, like especially here in the US, well, probably North America, a lot of colleges have different clubs for like ethnic groups or maybe like political interests or even religious interests. And pretty much all of those clubs have to accept you. You know what I mean? So if you're maybe Chinese American, then maybe the Chinese Student Union, like you're going to join and they're going to take you. They're not going to reject you. Sororities and fraternities have a limited membership. They also cost money.
Mm.
So like you might actually have to be slightly more affluent than other students sometimes to even be able to afford it. There's like dues and other things. I never was a member of them, and I know that for some people in some schools, especially for women, I believe it can be kind of devastating if you don't get accepted. So I'm saying this just to give context because sometimes there's a lot of pressure if you're coming to a school and like you really had your heart set on a sorority that maybe like your family belonged to or a sibling or parent or something like that, and then they don't let you in and then your friends get in, you're kind of like having to rethink your entire social life at that college from then
Mm.
on, right? So
All
it
right.
really is like kind of a make or break moment for your future.
All
Okay,
right.
that's all I got.
That's interesting. All right. So moving forward from that, she leaves the sorority at 7:15 p.m. She left because she said that she had to work on a paper she was writing about the history of her tribe. I believe it was some sort of a college paper. So now let's bring it back slightly here before we get ahead of ourselves. Now, Faith's first 2 years at the university, of I guess North Carolina at Chapel Hill, were kind of successful from what I'm gathering. She was getting good grades, she was doing well, but she took the spring 2012 semester off. So let's remember, she dies in September, so that's the beginning of fall. The beginning of fall semester, I would assume. But now the previous semester, the spring semester of 2012, she took off. So I guess this is the reason why she had to like really stay busy with her research and her homework assignments or whatever work that she was doing, because she wanted to catch up with her grades. So now, really quickly, without belaboring this little point for too long, do you think it's kind of odd that she, took the spring semester off? Because that's not usually, people don't do that, I would assume.
Yeah, I ran into it a little. I mean, I don't recommend it because then you are ending up having to make up like 12 units over the course of your college career. So that means taking more units other semesters. I have seen that though, even at like UCLA where I went. Honestly, I'll just finish this with it. It kind of made me mad when I saw that because like I came in as a transfer and I had to kind of bust my ass to get into UCLA as a transfer student, kind of had a chip on my shoulder about it. And then for somebody to get that kind of like coveted freshman entrance to a very competitive school like UCLA and then to kind of like, "Oh, I can't take it. I'm going to get out of here." On one hand, that left the opening for transfer students like me to come in, but I always felt like people like that were, I don't know, maybe just immature. That's just my opinion.
Well, from what I've gathered, she was kind of a really friendly and just in general a good person. So I wouldn't kind of
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah, I know that sounded harsh. So let me correct myself a little bit. I don't mean that the person's there's anything bad about the person, but I think this. I mean, I'll even say that most college students are probably not mature enough for college at 18 or
Oh
19.
yeah, oh yeah.
Sometimes, you know what I mean. Sometimes they say like college is almost wasted on people that are still in their teens. So that's all I mean is that maybe sometimes people come in and they're not really mentally prepared, and fair enough.
Exactly. Especially she was like 19 at that point. At 19, I wasn't like prepared to do anything in my life. So kudos to her for like having the first 2 years of university successful. Now, so she actually planned. So as she was taking, the semester off, I think it's very important for us to get to one point is that she remained at the Chapel Hill area. So this is the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill on the map right here. So she took the semester off, but she stayed in and around the Chapel Hill, which is this city area. Now she was living in an off-campus apartment at Hawthorne at the View Complex, which is this location right here. And I want to quickly jump to the street view for this location because this is the same place where unfortunately she was found dead by her roommate. And now I want to quickly talk about her roommate that she was living with in this off campus apartment. So she was living with a woman named Karena Rosario. Now, Karena Rosario will play a massive role in this case, especially on my end. I kind of have my suspicions toward Karena Rosario, and I will get into them. And I think a lot of people do as well. But now, Karena Rosario, she was also living with a boyfriend. So it was three people. And really quickly, from my research, I believe this was the apartment. I definitely know that it was the second floor apartment in this apartment complex. I believe it was this apartment right here. So three people were living there. That would be Faith herself, Karena, and then Karena's boyfriend, Eric Takoy Jones, who's also going to be a major part of this case. because he's heavily suspected to be the culprit in this case as well. But before we get ahead of ourselves, really quick backstory on Karena's and her boyfriend's Eric Takoy Jones's relationship. It was actually marked by domestic violence, and eventually Karena actually ended it. And now, after the relationship between Karena and Eric Takoy Jones ended in the apartment, there was only Karena and Faith living together. There was no one else. However, this is a little small point that I couldn't really find on all of the sources, only on one of the podcasts that I've listened to, and I think it was a major point in the in the whole grand scheme of things, is that Karena's, at this point, ex-boyfriend, Eric Takoy Jones, he moved out, but he stayed in the same building complex. From what I've gathered, he moved out of this apartment, but he stayed in the same building complex. And why this is important to us is because this man, after, he broke up with Karena Rosario, on two different occasions attempted to break into the two girls' apartment again. Okay, now Rosario, before that, Rosario changed the locks, but at least on two different occasions, he like kicked the doors in. So this is a very violent man, very unstable man, literally living in the same building complex, the girls. So I think a lot of people can, put two and two together and realize why this man is kind of heavily suspected to be involved in the murders, at least to some degree. So we'll get into it. But dude, have you ran to this point that Eric Takoy Jones actually stayed in the same apartment complex? Like, he didn't move that far away.
Yeah, I mean, that's not just awkward, which it would be awkward if you had like a nice breakup, right? But when you're having like a very acrimonious and allegedly violent tinged breakup, it's pretty troubling.
Yeah, and actually, Jones, Eric Takoy Jones, reportedly resented Faith Hedgepeth's influence over Karena Rosario's decision to break up with him, and at one point, Jones reportedly threatened Faith during a phone conversation with her, and he said, "I'll kill you if I cannot get back together with Rosario." Because let's remember, Faith had actually gotten Rosario and drove her to a local court to get like a, how are those things called? I kind of forgot. Restraining orders, right?
Restraining order,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
or a protective order
but like,
also.
how are you gonna get a restraining order? The dude is still living in the same apartment complex. Isn't how does that work? Like, is the restraining order like 5 meters or something?
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think it really differs by state and maybe even by like county or city laws. But there's some where like they can actually force, maybe I guess not this one, but in some places those orders can actually force the other person to move out of where they are if they're within a certain radius.
Apparently, it didn't happen in this case because he literally stayed the same place. Okay, so let's get back to the timeline. I really wanted to give a background on, who Faith was living at. Now, if we would go back to the timeline for our audience, really quickly, we left off at 7:15 p.m. on the previous day before she was found killed in her room in this particular apartment building. So at 7:15 p.m., she leaves the sorority. Her reason for leaving was she had to work on a paper. She was writing about the history of her tribe, because let's remember, she was a Haliva Sepoy Native American, and she was working on a research paper regarding her tribe. Now, herself and Karena Rosario, her roommate, actually went to the university's Davis Library to study together at 8 p.m. So I also have this point in the Google Earth map. Want to quickly make sure I get to that location just for a better reference. And the Davis Library is this particular location. So this is the Alpha Pi Omega chapter, where the Native American sorority is located at. Now, at 8 p.m., she meets up with Karena Rosario at the Davis Library, I guess, to do some study work. Immediately, what jumped to me is the fact that you go to a library to study at 8 p.m. I kind of never did that in my life. I feel like that's a little bit too late to do that, wouldn't you say? Or maybe it's
Yeah,
all
it's a
me.
weird time. I mean, I never really. It's funny. I actually went to the library more to like hang out with other people during that college era. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, but I knew other people that like they would actually do that. It always kind of amazed me. So maybe
Mm,
sometimes people do it to get away from other people. But if she went there with her friend, then it's sort of pointless. You know what I mean? I could see people that live in like a crowded
mm,
dorm environment doing that. But yeah, it's a little weird. Like,
mm.
what do they need from that library?
Well, she actually did some interesting things, Faith, in the library between 8:30 p.m. and 9 p.m. At first, she just exchanged some texts with her father regarding her hopes of joining the Alpha Pi Omega chapter's, Native American sorority. So apparently there was also some sort of a situation where her father at that point was having a hard time, and this is his quote. Well, not exact quote, but he said that he was on the verge of a like serious crisis, and he didn't tell that to Faith, but Faith kind of sensed and like just texted him, "Have hope" or like "Have faith." In the situation, and so she was on. I guess her relationship with her father was a good one, to say the least. Now, Faith and Rosario uh, returned returned back from the library to their apartment at 11:30 p.m. One interesting little point that maybe should be looked into more by people looking at this case, like the armchair detectives and all, is a little fact that somewhere somewhere in between 8 p.m. and 11:30 p.m., as the girls were at the library, Faith Hedgepeth had left Karena Rosario at the library for a short while. So, from what I'm gathering, she actually went to meet a man that she knew, and then she kind of returned back. Now, police, to my understanding, looked into that guy, and since we have DNA evidence found at the scene, he was not linked towards the case as a potential culprit. Now, the details that I have on that little moment where she leaves Rosario at the library and then comes back, maybe the time frame is like maybe an hour or like 30 minutes. But like, I don't know. You have anything on that? I mean, I don't.
No, it's one of a couple things about this case where there's like a vague teasing thing that we would want to know more about, but yeah, so far not really anything.
Right. So they return at 11:30 in the evening, 11:30 p.m. And a half an hour later, they leave again. So I would say at the midnight, literally at midnight, they're heading towards the Trill nightclub slash bar, and it's this location right here. It has been closed since, but this is a very important point for us in the timeline because in the nightclub they spend a good while. But now I actually want to correct myself a little bit here. It says here that they entered because we have like CCTV, or at least there was CCTV footage of the Trill nightclub, and the timestamp of them entering the nightclub is 12:40 a.m. in the evening. So they actually spend I'm gathering here about an hour and 30 minutes in the nightclub because they have been time stamped to leave the nightclub at 2:06 a.m. So they arrive at 12:40 a.m. They leave at 2:06 a.m. Now, the reason for leaving, because apparently this would be considered leaving a little bit early, especially if you arrived at like 12:40 a.m., you would probably want to stay there maybe up until like 3 a.m., maybe 3:30, something like that, because the nightclub was still definitely going. It was not closing when they left. Now, apparently they left because because Karena Rosario said she wasn't feeling that well. So before I move forward and to some other details that may have potentially happened during their stay at the Trill nightclub, you have anything else you want to add initially?
Only that this is, I think, maybe one of the most important things to look at when you scrutinize this case, because I think there's questions about like whether Karena was um, trying to figure out the best way to put it, whether she was sincere about not feeling good or whether that was an excuse for either her or both of them to get out of there. And then in terms of, because there's some footage that, and maybe this is for a follow-up episode. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of footage, but there's only a little tiny bit of footage. There's some footage of them leaving, and I think you could kind of scrutinize their demeanor and kind of the order in which they left the nightclub to try to, I don't know, to try to guess if there was any kind of acrimony or anything going on there. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of like reading tea leaves a little bit, but I find it interesting given what's going to happen later on that evening slash early morning.
Yeah. Now, one thing I want to stay in this nightclub event for 1 second. That is because apparently Eric Takoy Jones is suspected to have been at the club as well, because the Trill nightclub apparently was like one of the more popular establishments when it comes to partying during the night. So apparently he was also in the club, but this is unverified. So really quickly, do we have like information for certain that Eric Takoy Jones was at the club? Because from my research, it's like suspected that he was there, but like police didn't release that, I believe, that information.
No, actually, that is a new one for me in the research. Now, there was somebody else um, who was supposed to be at that nightclub who also features in this case and who had recent contact. Did Brandon Edwards come up um,
I'm
as far
not.
as being there?
Yeah, regarding Brandon Edwards, he's gonna be another character. We're gonna get to him really soon. To my understanding, there is no information whether he was at the club or not. So Brandon Edwards apparently wasn't. In my opinion, I don't know. I could be wrong, but like
Okay.
I didn't find that.
Yeah.
I know what it would entail for sure. You know what I mean? Or like the line of thinking that we could take if that was the case. Let's move, I think, through the story so that the audience members who are hearing about this case for the first time won't get actually lost. Because Brandon Edwards is a very interesting character in this case. I do agree, but I want to quickly jump through the timeline before we actually get to him, and he's coming up really shortly. So, as I've said, they leave at around 2:06 a.m. Yeah, we'll get to another point, but like let's just keep it keep it in our heads that from 12:40 a.m. to 2:06 a.m. Yeah, that's a.m. There was the girls for an hour and 30 minutes they spent at the nightclub. Karena is like, I'm having like a bad time, I don't feel good, let's go back home. And this is very important because Karena is gonna flip flop, and all of a sudden apparently she's gonna start feeling very good really shortly. So by 2 a.m., Faith and Karena return to their apartment. And now this is a very crucial point. Very crucial point. Now I don't know what this is, and I feel like this is one of the creepiest points. Literally, like has to be like one of the creepier points of this case. I want to quickly zoom in on the apartment. Now, as I've said, the girls lived on the second floor's apartment, but they had a neighbor who lived in the first floor of the apartment building. And now the woman who lived below actually was awake at 3 a.m. She was watching television. I don't know, maybe she couldn't sleep that night or something like that, right? Maybe she has insomnia, whatever. And she heard as the girls returned to their apartment, or she didn't see who exactly returned to the apartment. She just knew that someone returned to the apartment upstairs because, she was living below them on the first floor. And now she heard three thumping noises, which she described to be similar to a heavy bag being dropped or furniture being overturned. Shortly after someone had returned to the apartment. So, man, what do you make of that? Because, like, really quickly, to maybe drop some speculation in the mix here, some people believe that at that point, Faith is already dead. But this is just a theory. Because I don't believe she's dead at that point, and I will explain why. But some people believe that Faith is already dead at that point, and like the three thumping noises that she heard, and like a heavy bag, maybe that's like, maybe that's Faith's body being dropped. What do you make of that?
I'm undecided about what it means, but I do like that you called out that we don't know exactly who. We don't know. We've heard one person's story about or one or about what who came back to that apartment,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't know exactly
Mm-hmm.
who came back to that apartment and what shape they were in.
Yeah, exactly. Now, at the same point, around 3 a.m., Faith's Facebook page was also accessed around the same time. So let's remember, this is Facebook from 2012, not Facebook from 2021. Why I make this point is I think right now, if someone else is accessing a Facebook page from a different device, there's going to be some sort of an alert happening, or like there's going to be a way to pinpoint, if I'm not mistaken, if Facebook is being accessed by a device that has not accessed that particular Facebook account ever before. You know what I mean? But back in 2012, I would assume this protected, because Facebook was in its infancy. Well, not really, but still, you know what I mean? So is this a good assessment that we don't really know who accessed Faith's Facebook? Maybe Faith could be dead at this point and someone else is accessing her Facebook. I mean, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, you're right, because it was a few years in, but there weren't all these protections like you have now. Like now, like when you try to send in a Facebook, it's like making you. It always sends something to your phone. You know what I mean? And like emails you that your account was accessed from this
Mm.
other computer. And yes, exactly. It was way easier to access like social media from multiple devices and have it not really be unusual.
Yeah. Now let's move a little bit after 3 a.m. So personally, I still kind of lean towards Faith being alive at this point. It's just mysterious. The tree thumping noises, I have no idea what that is. I would definitely want to speak to the neighbor living downstairs to maybe get their take on what they think it was, because like they think it was like a heavy bag being dropped or furniture being overturned, but like do they think that something was up? I would like to talk to them. However, let's move 40 minutes into the timeline. So at around 3:40 a.m., so 3:40 a.m. The girls returned at 3 a.m., but now we're at 3:40 a.m. A text was sent from Faith's phone to the man we kind of referred earlier, who is Brandon Edwards. So Brandon Edwards was a former boyfriend of Faith. And now this is the quote. Okay, so she sent two text messages within 3 minutes. The first text message that Faith sent to her ex-boyfriend read, quote, "Hey B, can you come over here please? Rosario needs you more. Aha, you know. Please let her know you care. 3 minutes later, she sent a follow-up text with a single word, just then. And I kind of believe that this is the case. I think it's the case. I don't know why people say it's highly believed that the second message was just a correction for a misspelled word in the first text message, because that's kind of what it is. Like, let's not deny it. So the full initial message should be, quote, "Hey B, can you come over here, please? Rosario needs you more than you know. Please let her know you care." Not more, but more than you know. Please let her know you care. And now, this is kind of crazy. Initially, I want to ask you a question. Faith sends a text message to her ex boyfriend telling that, "Come over here. My roommate needs you more than you know. Make sure, like, you let her know that you care about her." So it's like, why is Faith sending a text message to her ex-boyfriend to come and stay with my roommate? Isn't that kind of weird for like 3:40 a.m.? Like what's like, I feel like there's something like there's a backstory to all of this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could see a couple ways. One way I could see is if it was sort of a running joke for some reason, like, oh, you know what I mean? Like sometimes people that are in a relationship tease each other about someone else who they do or they don't like. Because if you didn't like Rosario, then that would be like a joke, like kind of like, oh, yeah, come on, you love her. Um, but
Yeah.
it is odd. I guess the other thing is presumably if she was trying to let somebody down easier by like setting them up with someone else, but it's odd. It's odd almost any way you look at it, unless you happen to know that it's some kind of like funny inside joke between them.
Yeah, and that actually, this message, these two messages from, from Faith's phone was actually the last evidence of activity from her phone. Now, at 4:16 a.m., the same Brandon Edwards sends a return text to Faith, but it's crazy because in the return text, he basically asked, "Who is this?" So, what? Like, I have no idea how to even explain this. Like, who is this? Wouldn't he have Faith as a contact in her phone? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of interesting, don't you think?
Yeah, it's odd. I mean, unless she recently changed phones. I'm I'm confused. So like, just
Mm-hmm.
so I'm going to put myself in the place of a listener, because when I was reading up about the case, I was like, wait a minute, whose boyfriend? Who's because he wrote that? I was second guessing myself. I was like, wait, whose boyfriend was he before? So he wasn't. Just
Faith.
to be clear, he was Faith's ex
Yes.
boyfriend and not Rosario's.
Nope, nope,
Okay,
nope.
yeah,
Yep, yep,
because
yep.
you know what I mean. I could see someone else asking the same question,
Yeah.
just getting confused about. So yeah, it's pretty weird.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. But maybe, you know what I thought? Maybe it was a type of a text where it's like, he did see that it came from a contact, Faith. Like, maybe he did see, oh, Faith just sent me a message at 3:40 a.m. saying, "Hey B, can you come over here, please? Rosario needs more than you know. Please let her know you care." But maybe this type of a message at 3:40 a.m. is so unusual, so not what he would expect from Faith, that he in his mind believes someone else is using Faith's phone to send me this weird, cryptic, you know, unusual message, and I'll just text, "Who is this?" As in, who is using Faith's phone to send me these cryptic messages. Did I make any sense here, man?
Yeah, that makes sense, and that kind of hints at somebody else using the phone because it's something that Faith wouldn't have said.
Yes,
If
exactly.
that makes sense.
And that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense because you know what? Faith's roommate, Karena Rosario phone records actually show that she was also trying to contact Brandon Edwards. She made calls. She didn't text, she attempted to call. All right, but he did not answer her phone calls. So, at the same, okay, so what do we have here? We have Faith's phone sending cryptic, unusual messages to her ex boyfriend. The boyfriend is like, who is using her phone? I don't get this. And texts back, who's using this phone? And at the same time, Faith's roommate is also trying to call Edwards. So immediately, I just want to put it out there. Is there a chance that Karena Rosario was using both phones? Also to send a message and to potentially try to make the call. Is this a potentially viable scenario in your opinion?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's one of two scenarios, right? So it's either like the innocuous, innocent one is, oh, for some reason, I don't know why. The Rosario's, oh, sorry, Karina's gonna like has some kind of friendly relationship with Brandon,
Mm.
or they were gonna go do something. He was gonna give her a ride or whatever it was.
Mhm.
I don't know why. Who knows? School, and then they were both trying to actively get his attention at 3 in the morning.
Almost
Is that right?
four. Almost four, you know.
Almost four.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is odd. Or in kind of the one that I'm leaning more towards. Um, yeah, like Karina now has control over two people's devices,
Yeah.
and
That's
is
and
yeah
maybe even Facebook or at 3 a.m. Maybe in Facebook, if you know what I mean.
yeah
Maybe looking at Facebook, maybe looking at Facebook messages and seeing that Faith has done something that she wouldn't want to do. Maybe looking at Facebook, you know, DMs and finding something not to her liking. But this is coming up shortly now because after Brandon Edwards doesn't pick up the phone, and this is a very critical point. This is a insanely critical point in the timeline. The most critical point, in my opinion, in the timeline is what happens after Brandon Edwards doesn't pick up the phone calls from Karena Rosario, just wanted to say her full name. Her full name is Karena, last name Rosario. Karena Rosario was the roommate of Faith Hedgepeth, and now after Karena Rosario attempted to call Brandon Edwards, Faith's ex-boyfriend, and couldn't get through to him, she made another phone call. And this is very critical. She calls a man named Jordan McCrary, who's actually a professional soccer player, actually had a stint at a MLS club, which is, the highest football, or like however you want to call it, like in America, soccer, league in America, very like prestigious when it comes to American football. And he calls that guy, and at 4:25 a.m. on the same night, she leaves the apartment and gets into Jordan McGrary's, the football player's car, and leaves, I guess, to spend the rest of the night and to party somewhere else. So what do we have here? We have Karena Rosario leaving this apartment building, getting into a football player's car, driving elsewhere. I'll show on the map where she actually drove, but what she did was insane. This is the most critical point, in my opinion, in the timeline. She leaves, this is her quote, she leaves the door to the apartment unlocked. And her statement is, I believed at that point that Faith was sleeping in her room. So this immediately tells me two things. The first thing that this tells me is she only believes that Faith was sleeping in her room. Do we know for a fact that she opened her room's door and checked if she was sleeping? Because if she only believes and is not 100% sure that, Faith was sleeping in her room, that is a very big clue, in my opinion. And obviously, let's address the elephant in the room. She leaves the apartment building unlocked. Dude, does this look like an area where you would want to leave your apartment building unlocked, given the fact that a very aggressive, very violent ex boyfriend of Karena Rosario is living at the same apartment complex, who has in the past threatened to kill Faith Hedgepeth over phone calls and broke into the house by kicking the door in 2 times? Is this a smart move on Karena Rosario's part to leave the apartment building unlocked with your friend sleeping inside, allegedly, without having any way to protect herself?
It's so weird too because I mean, there's like multiple layers of strangeness around this statement. So I think you said the elephant in the room, like the outermost, just ridiculous layer of it is you've been, both you and your roommate specifically have been in danger by somebody who lives right nearby, who has kicked in the door before. Number two, why would you ever leave the front door unlocked on somebody who is asleep, right?
Yes.
Like I could understand maybe if there wasn't for this boyfriend thing that she's like, oh well, what's her, Faith was awake, and I thought maybe maybe she, if she smokes or something, maybe she's gonna go outside and smoke or blah. But it's it's baffling. And then I guess the thing is, she didn't even say like, oh, I forgot. Like I think maybe I forgot to lock the door. Like, you know what I mean? It almost sounds like we've talked about this when guilty people sometimes say stupid things and implicate themselves because they can't help it.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying she's guilty. I'm saying, allegedly, just under this hypothetical situation,
Hmm.
if she was culpable, why the hell would you tell the cops that? Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Other than, I guess, being honest to the point of exposing your own stupidity or foolishness. What, it doesn't make sense. There's like a very inexplicable, like you said, I guess probably everyone else is saying the
Hmm.
same thing.
Hmm.
It's inexplicable. Why would you? It sounds like she did it deliberately.
Hmm. It's a really good point. If she's guilty, or at least is an accessory, which I kind of believe if she is related, she's most likely an accessory to the homicide. She's not the main culprit. Um, she leaves out weird information. The fact that she left her, left the the apartment building unlocked is all right. Maybe she had to make that statement because police kind of asked her that. Um, Also, the fact that she only believed Faith to be sleeping. I'm not sure if she, uh, you know, knew for a fact if she checked upon her before she left, because it's kind of seemed like this night was kind of going all over the place. I want to not move fast here. Another elephant in the room, dude. I want to quickly ask for your opinion. This is a very important area for us to discuss. Now, let's throw it back to the nightclub, the Trill nightclub that the girls were at from around around 12:40 a.m. to 2:06 a.m. Let's for around an hour and 30 minutes. So, if you would remember, dude, really quickly, the reason why they left was because Karena Rosario said she's not feeling well. Now, what happens next? Maybe, I don't know, an hour into the night and some texting, or maybe 2 hours into the night and a lot of texting. She decides to oh, now all of a sudden I'm feeling good. I'm just gonna go party with this soccer player. So it's didn't you find that situation kind of weird? How she felt bad, felt like she had to get out of the club because she was the main reason why they left the club early. And now they return up into the apartment. She doesn't act like someone who had to leave the club because she wasn't feeling good. She's texting people, trying to call people, trying to arrange the rest of the night. It's 4 a.m. Are you still trying to to have a party. Like, it's 4 a.m., just go to bed. But she's like trying to arrange things, and she arranges another party, and then she leaves. So isn't that kind of weird? Like, she was supposed to be feeling bad. She was supposed to go to bed right afterwards, right?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. I think that proves to me that for whatever reason, that thing about her feeling sick wasn't real.
Yeah.
Because you would think, like, whether it was drinking, which aren't they underage, but if it was drinking or you ate something or whatever it was,
Hmm.
like, I've never, in my experience, I mean, everybody that happens to, they go and they sleep it off, right? Like,
Mm.
you're not miraculously like recovered. I mean, unless you go vomit, I guess, from drinking. But even then, like, usually people go, they pass out or they go sleep for another 8 hours, right?
Really quickly, the Trill nightclub. Now, the girls were underage. However, the nightclub, the Trill, they allow the people below the drinking age for the purposes of dancing. But now, these being two girls, kind of close, really close to the drinking age, kind of wouldn't put it past it back in 2012 for them to maybe had acquired a few drinks at the club. Apparently, we don't know this information, whether they were drinking or not. It's really hard to tell at this point. Also, I know I want to move past what happened next after Karena Rosario left with this soccer player to go to another party. Really quickly before we leave this thought, because I want to really circulate this idea about Karena Rosario a little bit here. Now, Karena Rosario, after the case broke, she actually left this town. She kind of moved kind of quickly. She didn't really talk to reporters about anything, and this is rational. I mean, maybe you have nothing to do with the case, maybe you're completely innocent and you just don't want to talk too much because it's gonna like hurt your personal ambitions, maybe your career path. You don't want to be connected to the case. If people are speculating online that you had something to do with it and you're completely innocent, maybe this is not a good thing for you to keep talking to reporters about this case. That's perfectly understandable. But now, what I want to mention here really quickly is the fact that actually police investigating this case, they had kept coming back to her, asking her questions. The quote I have is 10 times. They talked to her 10 times about the case over the years that had passed after Faith was murdered. So it's like the police is coming back to her. The only reason why law enforcement would keep coming back to Karena Rosario for questions is because, in my opinion, like the answers that she's giving them doesn't add up, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. They're trying to catch her in a lie or discrepancy or like, because what else could she have to tell
maybe
them,
she
right?
maybe she, maybe they already caught her in one of those, and that
Yeah,
that's why
yeah.
they keep like knocking on the door,
They're trying to find like an edge to pry up, right? To
yeah.
see what's underneath. Yeah.
Yeah, because she has to know something, I believe personally. Now, let's jump to the timeline. What happens when Karena leaves with Mageri, like the soccer player? They drove from Rosario's and Face's apartment to another acquaintance on West Longview Street at Chapel Hill. I have that little area. I don't know why Google Earth is kind of being annoying today, but this is the area. So they leave around this neighborhood. It's just a regular neighborhood in Chapel Hill. It's around, I don't know, let's quickly do a measurement as the crow flies. It's around 3.5 miles. I would say getting there is around 5 miles. So, they drive for around 5 miles to get to the other location that they were heading towards. And now she apparently spends the rest of her evening, which is kind of, the evening is already done. It's kind of early morning hours. I'm kind of curious to see what she did and how she was acting in that party, because let's remember, if at that point she had the knowledge already in her head that Faith is either is already dead and badly beaten in her room, or if she purposely left the apartment building unlocked because she knew that someone was gonna go and do those horrible things to Faith. She, I think, being like at least having slight senses of sanity, and maybe she's completely innocent, like maybe I'm being too hard on her, but if she knew that that was gonna happen to Faith, or if she knew that Faith is already dead, maybe she would have acted kind of different at the party. Because wouldn't you agree, dude? When you go to like a weird party at like 4:30 a.m., you already know that your roommate is gonna get killed or is dead at that point. I mean, personally, I couldn't party normally. I couldn't be myself. So maybe the people attending the party, they could probably come out and chime in on, how Karena Rosario was acting, which I believe they probably have at this point, to police at least.
Yeah, I agree, though. I mean, I don't want to tease what's coming up next too much, but judging by the 911 call, she may very well be like a really good actress, or allegedly a psychopath.
Exactly. All right. So what happens next? She's at this party at Longview Street up until let's check the time. At around 10:30. So at 10:30 a.m., in the morning at this point of the day when Faith was found murdered in her room, Karena Rosario begins trying to arrange a ride home. So she at first is calling Faith to come pick her up from this party. But now Faith does not answer because Faith is dead in her room at that point, so she can't answer. So then Rosario calls another friend called Marisol Rangel. Now this friend, Marisol Rangel comes to the Longview Street area and then drives them back to the location where they lived and where Faith was found dead, basically their apartment. What happened next is really choppy and very interesting. So they arrive at around 11 a.m. in the morning. They entered and called for Hedgepeth, but we don't really know if Marisol Rangel also entered with Karena Rosario, because Karena Rosario, upon finding Faith dead in her room, she immediately dials 911, and on the 911, she doesn't ever refer to anyone else being in the apartment with her, which is, I guess, kind of normal. I mean, you're shocked, you just found your roommate dead. I guess you don't really care to tell police about who's in the house with you. Maybe that's normal. Some people think it's strange. At this point, I want to quickly play everyone the 911 call that Karena Rosario allegedly. Some people believe it was actually Marisol Rangel who calls instead of Karena. I think that's kind of a super wild speculation. I still heavily suspect that Karena Rosario made that 911 call, and police actually said that Karena made the call. So let's go with the police here. So I want to quickly play the phone call, 911 phone call that Karena made to Faith. So I'm gonna play it right now. It's around 8 minutes, so strap in. I want everyone to hear the entirety of it. And after the phone call, 911 call, we're gonna return to discuss what happens next. So I'm playing it right now.
11:01 a.m. 44 seconds, September 7, 2012.
Dara 911, where is your emergency?
I just walked into my apartment and my friend was just like you're unconscious.
Okay, what's your address, ma'am?
live at Hawthorne at the View.
Give me the address.
I just moved here. I'm about to get it. Oh my God. It's 5639 Old Chapel Hill Road in Durham.
Okay, repeat it to me so I make sure I've got it correct.
Okay. 5639 Old Chapel Hill Road. It's apartment 1602.
1602?
Yes.
Okay. What's the phone number you're calling from?
201-321-8075.
Okay, you say your friend is unconscious?
He's unconscious. I just walked in the apartment and there looks like there's blood everywhere.
Listen to me. Somebody's already sending the ambulance. Okay? I need to get some information from you, and I'm gonna tell you how to help her, okay?
Okay.
Okay, how old is she?
She's 19.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't want to touch her, but...
Listen to me. Is she breathing?
I don't know.
You need to check and see. Is she breathing?
Kate, I don't think so.
Okay, listen to me.
There's blood everywhere.
There's what?
There's blood everywhere.
Okay.
I don't know what happened.
Okay, is she on her back or is she laying on her stomach?
She's on her back, but I think she fell off the bed because she's off the bed. There's blood all over the pillows, in the comforter. I just don't know what happened.
Okay. All right, listen to me, all right?
Is someone coming?
Yes, I've got somebody coming. I need for you to help her. I need for you to go up to her. We need to see if she's breathing or not. Okay?
I don't think so.
Okay. Listen to me. Go up. The paramedics are on their way. I want you to stay on the line. I'm going to tell you what to do next, all right? Are you right by her now?
Yes.
Okay. Listen carefully.
Moving.
She's not moving. Okay.
No.
Will you touch her arm? Tell me, how does she feel?
She's not moving.
Okay, ma'am, we need to find out if we can help her or not. You've got to, do as I'm asking so we can help her. All right?
Okay.
Okay. If you can, lay her flat on her back. Remove any pillow.
Lay her flat on her back?
Flat on her back. Remove any pillow.
Okay.
Okay. Kneel next to her. Look in her mouth for food or vomit.
Blood everywhere.
Okay. Kneel next to her and look in her mouth for food or vomit. Tell me something. Listen to me. What is your name?
Karena. I'm sorry. I'm really tired.
It's okay, honey. Listen to me.
No.
Okay. All right. Listen to me. When you touched her, how did she feel? Does she feel warm?
No, she feels cold.
She feels cold? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Don't touch anything else, okay? Don't touch anything else.
Hurry.
Okay, they're on their way. I've got police on the way to you, and I've got medics on the way. Okay?
I can't believe this.
Okay. What room is she in?
She's in my bedroom.
Okay, I want you to go back into the living room, okay?
I don't know what's going on.
Okay, listen
to
me.
In my room that was not here before.
Okay,
it looks
listen
like
to
someone
me.
that came in here.
Okay.
It really does.
All right, what did you say your name was again?
Because
I don't. Okay, listen to me. Don't touch anything else in the room.
I'm not.
I want you to leave that room. Go into the living room. You need to make sure the door is unlocked so somebody can get in, so that the medics and the police can get in when they get there. Okay?
Yes, of course. It's unlocked.
Okay, now
They're
tell me again.
going to get here, though.
Okay, they're on their way, honey. They're coming as fast as they can. You just stay on the phone with me, all right?
I am.
Okay, tell me again what your name is.
It looks like someone had been in there because she's
Okay.
not like the cell. I don't know what
Okay,
she's sleeping.
okay. I've let them know. We've got everybody on the way to help you. Now, tell me again what your name is.
What?
What is your name?
Karena Rosario.
Karena?
Yes.
Okay, Karena. You sit down on the couch and don't touch anything, okay? You just sit down.
I'm not touching anything.
Okay. I just want you to sit down because the police and the medics are going to be there. They're coming just as fast as they can, all right?
Okay.
You just stay on the phone with me, okay? You just stay on the phone with me.
Are you sure they're coming?
Yes, ma'am. They are on their way.
I just can't believe this. No, someone had to have been in there.
Okay. We've got first responders on the way. There's a fire truck coming. There's a medic coming, and the sheriff's department's on the way to you.
Okay.
You just stay on the phone with me until somebody gets there with you. All right?
Okay.
Okay, Karena. How old are you, Karena?
I'm 20.
You're 20? Okay, hon. You're doing all right. You're doing all right. You just stay on the phone with me.
I see the police.
You see the police?
Yes.
Okay. You let me know when they get in there with you, and then you can talk to them, all right?
Okay.
I just don't want you to be alone right now.
Okay.
Okay? You just stay on the phone with me.
Okay.
Are they in there with you? They coming in?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, honey. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
And that was the 911 call, guys. So make of it what you will. Some people speculate that it was kind of weird that Karena Rosario hesitated to touch Faith's body to make sure that she's alive, because the 911 reception woman insisted that Karena checks if Faith is still breathing, but now she's very hesitant to do that. She sounds distraught, so she doesn't do it apparently. So the police arrive and the phone call ends. So, dude, your take on the phone call? Do you have any interesting points there that you want to touch upon?
Yeah, I had a couple notes about this, and so the one of the things that not just me, but obviously a lot of the people I was researching said was the 911 call sounded, for some reason, it doesn't sound totally sincere to me. It sounds over-explaining. Like it seems like there's a lot of like extra detail thrown in there, yet she didn't want to actually help, it sounded like. So at one point, the 911 dispatcher is trying to get her to offer, I guess, what I would call like some form of triage or remedial medical aid. And she sort of, you know what I mean? Like a lot of people found this weird, because some people are like, well, you find someone bloody and, you don't really want to touch them. But then other people were like, well, if it's someone you cared about, wouldn't you want to try to save their life? And maybe that's the difference between like when it's a family member and when it's somebody you're not as attached to. But I don't know. It seems odd to me that she seemed very adamant that Faith was already dead.
Yeah, exactly. Let's, I guess, touch upon a little bit of the investigation and then the evidence, and then finally we could get to the theories. So, the investigation section that we have prepared here is kind of not very in depth. So just really quickly, the details of the initial investigation were not disclosed publicly. So it was a deviation from Chapel Hill's police usual practice, because apparently they would usually release some more details. Now, police collected semen from the scene and used it to develop a DNA profile. All right, and now this DNA profile, it kinda was consistent with a male's DNA found elsewhere in the apartment. So we have semen at the scene. I think it was actually inside the body of Faith, if I'm not mistaken. And now the DNA from it kind of correlated with DNA found elsewhere in the apartment, which would make sense. This man probably, who, because we know it's a male, kind of entered the house, touched a bunch of stuff, most likely, because you can't really open doors without touching the doors if you're not well prepared. And then it was determined that Faith had died from blunt force trauma to the head, likely a result of being hit by an empty Bacardi bottle that was in the apartment. There was blood all over the place. There was blood spatter all over the room. And yeah, I guess that's the initial DNA evidence, like the initial investigation. So really quickly, just to paint a better profile of the assailant, to me this says two things. We don't know how many people are involved. However, I strongly suspect that the killer was not a mastermind killer, was not an avid killer who is like, who does this all the time. I think this is someone who may had potential knowledge that the apartment building was unlocked, and the fact that they finished, I guess, the kill or something like that, if you could call it that way, with a Bacardi rum bottle, that to me screams emotional, non-professional killer. I don't know if that's like a good way to put it or whatever, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it seems to me sloppy work. Like, that's all I'm gonna say. You know what I mean? Do you see my point?
Yeah, I think you're doing an excellent job of, I think, what John Douglas would call like a form of profiling, where you're saying they're basically a disorganized killer. That, like you said, this might be actually their first rodeo doing something like this, right? Not like we've seen some of those other people that they bring gloves and they bring a rope or handcuffs and maybe what you would call a rape kit, like
Apparently
tape
there
and other
was.
things.
I just want to quickly add. Apparently there was some sort of a rape kit found, but I don't know the exact information. You know.
Interesting, like tools somebody would use to do something. You know what I mean? Like, so by rape kit, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Like they say when they when they pull over some weird creepo and he's got like handcuffs, tape, like a taser and some other stuff in his trunk, and was already suspected of some other stuff. Yeah, so it's odd too. No, I will say, just to play a little bit of devil's advocate, because of all the confusion about all the DNA in the apartment. I mean, we have to remember this is two young ladies with an active, presumably mostly heterosexual sex life. So by that I mean, a social life with men, which might be why you're finding, semen all over the place. You're just talking about people at an age where it's not that unusual to be, let's say, active in that way. So even somebody in a normal relationship could be kind of, you know what I mean? There'd be a chance to have DNA that's totally unrelated to this event, in theory, all over the place.
Yeah, that kind of makes. That's a good point, actually. I didn't even consider that fact. Now, we don't really have anything else in the notes regarding that, but now I want to quickly jump to the evidence, because we have a crucial little clue left by the killers that kind of doesn't make any sense. And this is why I'm kind of really trying to dissect this case really slowly, and I kind of really want to make sure I'm doing like as good of a job as I can for like the audience members who may have not been aware of this case to not get lost, because now we're entering a whole another section of like details, random suspicious details. So I want to quickly start off with the evidence that was found. So obviously, ever since the police released the records, we have the 911 call that Rosario, I guess Karena Rosario made. We already talked about it, but now we have a note. I want to quickly jump on the visuals here. We have this note. I kind of want to zoom it in a little bit. It's kind of bad resolution. So we have a note, and it was left in her room. And now this note says, quote, "I'm not stupid, bitch, jealous." Some people, I want to immediately say, some people think it was misworded. Some people believe that it was supposed to say, "I'm not stupid, jealous bitch." But now it says, "I'm not stupid, bitch, jealous." Something like that. So we have a really cryptic note left at the scene. Now the note was then later identified to have been written on a piece of paper that was stripped from a paper bag. Okay, that was stripped from a paper bag that was used by a takeout restaurant. This, to me, this is an important detail. I don't know why a lot of people don't focus on this. The paper bag that was taken, right, from the Time Out restaurant in East Franklin. So I don't know, maybe this takeout bag, it's why I'm kind of pinpointing this restaurant is literally on the other side of the street from the Trill nightclub. So I kind of could see, I don't know if this is important to the case or not, but like it could have been the case that as Karena Rosario and Faith leave the Trill, they may have went to the Time Out restaurant if it was still open. It was kind of late in the evening, so maybe it was like from a day ago, and they kind of took takeout, and someone who killed the girl who killed Faith most likely wrote the note. So now distinctively on the note, for everyone who's looking at this on the visual assets on our YouTube channel, I want to quickly mention a few interesting points. Experts who have looked at the note, the consensus that I have is 2 points. It seems like it was written from a female, like it has like a feminine, like this is not my opinion, because my writing is all over the place, but like from the experts' opinion, they believe this note has a feminine touch to it, and now distinctively it has no blood on it, while the whole room is kind of really bloody, which means that potentially this note could have been a premeditation, meaning that it was written before the kill. So yeah, what do you make of the note, man?
So I've been trying to think a lot about this note because the note's so mysterious in part because the room apparently was blood spattered. So for something about the way she was killed left a lot of like blood all over the place, but the note was pristine. And that's why people have sort of second guessed whether this note was actually connected to the killer or not. Because one alternative theory was, well, especially because it's from like a place that they could have gone to, right?
Yeah.
To get food from, and presumably had gotten food from, that they were writing like either funny / bitchy notes back and forth to each other. So like, what I mean? It was like maybe it could have been like a joke, could have been not a joke. It could have been something passive aggressive between them. But the question was, how did this thing end up on the scene? And so imagine, I know I'm belaboring this a little bit, but it's for a good reason. So
yeah, of course.
Imagine you're the killer and you're like, you've done this thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's blood all over you. There's blood in your hands. right? There's blood. How could you not have blood on you? How could you not accidentally smear something on this? It's like from like a did it in the heat of the moment thing and then wrote it afterwards or before. How would you keep this thing clean unless maybe you had kept it in like a plastic bag or something? And even then, to get it out of the plastic bag, you know what I mean? There's like some degree of preparation or staging. So then it kind of begs the question, well, could somebody have brought the note
Mm-hmm.
afterwards, after the fact? Let's say Karena, just an example, not saying she did it, and like, you know, it's conspiracy or not, could have brought it in to help try to stage the scene to point in a different direction, like a red herring for investigators that, oh, someone jealous did this, someone else did this. Now, one of the things people, by the way, there's like some degree of handwriting analysis over this, because if you look at it, the writing's terrible, and people have guessed that this was done with someone's like offhand, so like their
Mm-hmm.
left hand if they're right-handed, to disguise the handwriting, because that's one of those things like handwriting analysis, like we've seen in the John Bonet case, etc., is one of those things that tends to point at somebody. So people couldn't help but notice like the handwriting's really messy on this. So that to me makes me think it's not two people writing funny slash bitchy notes
Mm-hmm.
to each other, but that somebody was trying to stage the scene to point in a specific direction. It also doesn't make sense, because why are you writing a note to a dead person?
Exactly.
She
Exactly.
can't read it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, unless just a ghost is reading it. I mean, or I will say, I've said this before. Crazy people do crazy things that don't always make sense. That doesn't mean it's impossible.
That's that's a good point. Other than that, from the note, I kinda have no idea what happened there. To react to what you just said really quickly, if in fact Karena Rosario was the one who placed the note potentially as a ready hearing to maybe get some attention of herself and point in a different direction, wouldn't there be some DNA that belonged to Karina on the note, or could have she just used like I don't know, maybe a glove or something, right?
Right. So once again, this is like really mysterious, because from all the research I saw, there's nothing in the note. And that's the part, you know what I mean? So this is a crime scene that has DNA all over the place. It's got blood all over the place.
Mm.
And that to me is a big red flag and red herring. Red flag that it's a red herring. So that to me, points to there being some element of staging here, and potentially like more than one person involved,
Yeah.
and some intentional misdirection going on about what happened.
This has to be like the luckiest culprit ever, because he's being messy and then somehow things just work out. Like, given how much DNA they have, and like these notes and all of these things that are happening, to not have a conviction, it's pretty strange. I'm not gonna lie. And now the last detail, or maybe like the last 2 points before we jump into the theories, really quickly. There was a conversation accidentally recorded on one of Faith's friends. So really quickly, the story here, and it's a big story actually. A friend of Faith shared with police a long conversation, perhaps inadvertently recorded when Faith's phone pocket dialed, meaning accidentally dialed, the phone of this friend who came forward with this information. Now, the friend didn't pick up, so that pocket dial went straight to voicemail. And now, uh, this voicemail it consisted of a three-way conversation. Apparently, some people think they can hear four individuals on it, but it says here that it consisted of a three-way conversation. It was 3 minutes long. Now, between what sounds to be Faith and a female, and a male, and there was music in the background, and police determined that this phone call and then the following voicemail was recorded at 1:23 a.m. on the day when Faith was found murdered. So if we would do the quick math, 1:23 a.m., that would place Faith being at the Trill nightclub. So now on that phone call or like voicemail that Faith accidentally left on her friend's phone, some people that analyzed it highly suspect that on it there was it captured what was the killing of Faith Hedgepeth, and they argue that during the time, I believe it was an iPhone that Faith had, the metadata sometimes gets messed up, and they argued that the timestamp could have been different, not 1:23 a.m., because like the biggest reason why I can't get behind this theory that an accidental voicemail captured the killing of Faith is because of the official timestamp is 1:23 a.m. while she was at the Trill, so she can't be getting killed at 1:23 a.m. and then seen on CCTV at 2:06 a.m. walking out. Like, that's impossible. But if the timestamp is different, maybe it is the case. Nevertheless, we are still going to play it for you guys, so let's listen in. I don't know. It's all over the place. You can find it online. This is exactly why I didn't want to stop here. So your thoughts on the accidental or voicemail? For me personally, I find it super convenient how it would capture a killing of Faith. Personally, I just, from what I've looked into, I'm not putting too much weight behind it. So I guess that's why I didn't really prepare to talk about it that much.
Yeah, so it's funny because when I first heard the recording, saw the transcript of what it allegedly said, I was like, oh, like case closed. It's some kind of conspiracy and some kind of personal thing. But then there's a lot of dispute about whether that transcript is accurate or not. Like I've seen a lot of pushback on it. And then the other thing was the timing, right? So, the theory was, well, cell phone towers and yada, all this stuff about the time being wrong. And the police apparently are like adamant that that time is correct. So as convenient as it would have been, like if it had been later, because somebody would have said, oh, there's the thing, even if it had been like between when they left the club and gotten back to the house, like
Yeah.
that would have made more sense if she was in a car and something was going down, and that's, like we don't know that
Mhm.
she ever actually made it alive into her own house, her own apartment. But no, like she's supposed to be in a public place at this point. I'll also say, when you listen to that transcript, did she sound afraid? You know what I mean? It didn't really
Mm.
sound like someone begging for their life. The voice, I mean, sometimes maybe sound a little angry, but then, once again, that's being tinged by what allegedly she was saying in those moments. But it didn't sound to me like someone afraid for their life necessarily
Yes.
because of two or more people. Yeah.
I do agree, and also the music in the background that could have been the club, the trill, because the time point is her being at the club, the trill. You know what I mean? So maybe that's what the music is. Some people say that it's still an unusual background noise for a club, hence you don't really hear any, glasses like getting touched or whatever, or like any like beverages being poured or whatever. But I kind of found that to be a weak reason to not think that this was recording in the trill, because um if the phone is in your pocket and you could just be standing somewhere in the corner far away from the bar, so it's like, I don't know, like I could see it happening, not catching, you know what I mean, like the
Yeah.
other sounds with like a place that sells beverages.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I haven't been in a lot of clubs, but I remember them being deafening. And somebody said that one of the parts that supposedly the transcript had identified as like a person rapping, someone else was like, "Oh no, that's like the actual song." I mean, that's why you
Yeah.
can obviously hear it. Like at one point, someone's obviously auto-tuned, and I'm like, "Well, nobody's auto-tuned when they're singing to the radio, right?" So
Yeah.
like there was that, and then someone mentioned that at that exact time, at that exact club, was known to play this one song all the time, and the person identified the song. So I'm like, okay, it's, to me it starts to feel like a red herring, which is too bad because it seems like it would be a great clue if it was genuine.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then lastly, before we jump into our closing, I guess, theories, what we think about this case, a DNA profile is very important. Was actually made from the DNA collected at the scene to at least figure out the ethnicity of the man who was definitely, if not the sole, then one of the culprits in the homicide of Faith Hedgepeth. Basically, Chapel Hill police released an image generated by Parabon Nanolabs. I have this image right here. It's an interesting image. So what it says, it's basically Parabon Nanolabs is a genetic testing company, and in Reston, Virginia, of what the so they released of what the suspect who left the semen might look like based purely on the phenotype in his DNA profile. Parabon's Nanolabs president told ABC that Snapshot, the program his company used to create the image, quote, predicts eye color, hair color, skin color, freckling, face morphology, and ancestry. The image included a chart listing the probability that the suspect had the traits he was assigned, and according to the image, the suspect was very strongly Native American and European mixed ancestry of Latino. So basically, most of his genetic markers pointed to Mexican, Colombian, and Iberian ancestry, with some other South American and African countries making up the balance. So the Nanolabs believed with over 80% confidence that the suspect would have a skin tone in the olive range with very few freckles or none at all and black hair. It did not make any predictions as to the height and weight. So from this, I guess they're saying it was a Latino Hispanic person, right?
Yeah, and I'm kind of on the fence about this whole phenotyping thing. I saw some other stuff this company did where they had some drawings like this, some renditions that were somewhat close to what the person looked like. I'll say that I have a little bit of skepticism about what some other companies do, like with when they claim to give you back DNA test results about what your ancestry is, and then it says you're X percent from this country and that country. Like I know it's come a long way since I've done it myself, but when I did it back, 12 years ago or so now, they're kind of like just tracing really broad groups of people. Like you'll see if you look at it, like this, I think it says the Middle East in there. On this image, and it's like, do you know what that is? That's supposed to be like when like 100,000 years ago, when groups of humans left Africa. So like that's the Middle Eastern part for a lot of those haplogroups. At least the one I did was haplogroups, and I've seen that there's some amount of nonsense mixed in there. It is still interesting. I mean, here's the other thing is there's all sorts of gaps in those genetic things because it's not getting all of your ancestors. It's getting like your mother's 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 mother and your father's 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 father, because you're not getting every single. It's hard to explain in a short podcast, but yeah. Anyways, let me just summarize it. That it's interesting. I don't know that we know that this is the person, because we don't. There's still like this question about is this the person that had sex with her, and is the person that had sex with her the person that did this? So is it possible?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Is it possible somebody came, somebody had an encounter with her that was maybe even consensual, they left, someone else shows up afterwards, and that, you know what I mean? Or even a conspiracy where one person does the assault, so it's not the only suspect.
Yeah.
It's
makes sense, but I kind of still lean towards that. At least the consensus is that the semen belonged to a male of Hispanic descent, if you know what I mean. Like that's the consensus. At least we don't know if he's the killer, but like we kind of strongly suspect that he is, and I kind of feel that it was of a Hispanic descent.
It's interesting to me. Like I actually I mean, for all my kind of naysaying right now, it would be interesting to me that if they've been using let's say machine learning and data science and have a pretty good track record of, hey, look, we have all these samples and then we have photographs of the people, and we actually just use machine learning to really establish patterns, and that's pretty cool. I would love for someone to do this with me, where they took, like not as the suspect in a murder, but like just as like let me donate my samples to a place under like another name, and then let them try to do this for me. And then, like, wouldn't that be an awesome show? Like, as a little side topic,
Oh
it
yeah.
would be great if somebody from this company listened to this and was like, "Oh no, we'll do it," and we could do it that way, because it'd be really interesting to see for you and me how accurate it would be using the same technique.
That's a good point. I kind of assume that they probably have certain like techniques like that already, where they're trying to develop this tool. But it's definitely a fun thing to do, I guess, for us. Now I think at this point we've went through the story, and I guess we can like give our own conclusions. So in regards to who may be responsible here, I kind of strongly want to start out with and let's just go back and forth what we think about each individual potential outcome. So the violent ex-boyfriend of Karena Rosario that lived in the same location, the same apartment complex building that had threatened to kill Faith before. That's Eric Takoy Jones. Now, why I want to start off with him is because on the same night when Faith was actually killed, he made cryptic Facebook page posts, and it says, Takoy Jones saying, "Dear Lord, forgive me for all of my sins and the sins I may commit today, like the sins that I may commit today. Protect me from the girls who don't deserve me and the ones who wish me dead today." And he also called some acquaintances, told them, "Forgive me for what I potentially might do tonight." So, a strange coincidence. Now, for everyone who's listening and not watching the visual assets, Eric Takoy Jones is an African American man. The semen apparently belonged to a Hispanic man. Takoy Jones was very talkative to police, and he cooperated. And police, they say that Takoy Jones had nothing to do, in their opinion, with the death of Faith, and they're not focusing on him. From what I've gathered, what they said, I think in the public, they're not focusing on Takoy Jones, but Takoy Jones is making cryptic Facebook messages or like posts on the same night, and was living in the same apartment complex, threatened to kill Faith before, broke into that same apartment at least 2 times, and was very familiar with the layout of the apartment because he had previously lived there. So let's I don't know, man. The one thing I have in my head, I think Takoy might know more than he had told police. Even if he's not the culprit, I think he may know more, or he could have been an accessory to the crime, because we don't know how many people committed the rape and murder of Faith. Maybe he wasn't actually doing the act, but maybe he was standing somewhere close by, or like, scoping out the area or something like that. So that's where I'm gonna leave it at with Takoy Jones.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I could see him writing that note. I don't understand how. I don't understand how it wasn't him, really. I mean, I guess other than, like you said, the DNA doesn't match. I'll add in that one of the things I watched for research, it was like a news crew, and they were saying that like he wouldn't comment. Sorry, I had to clear my throat.
Yeah.
That he wouldn't comment, and that I'll just say that anybody that wouldn't comment to press, like, I don't blame them for that. Like, I think you can only lose, as we saw from a couple of our other cases that we've done. Sometimes people just dug a deeper hole for themselves, even when they didn't necessarily do anything wrong. And I think their lawyers would certainly tell them there's nothing to be gained by talking to the press for any of this stuff, especially if they're at all an active suspect or were an active suspect. It doesn't even help you anymore to talk to the press,
Yeah.
to get your name out there. But that being said, I mean, he sounds like a shitty human being. Honestly, I mean, if what's alleged about his behavior is true, I mean, it sounds like he's like a horrible person to be in a relationship with. He's violent. He's just, I don't understand how he wasn't. I mean, I guess it's just a statement to our state of, you know, not enough police, not enough, ways to protect people. And unfortunately, it's not uncommon for people that are in horrible domestic situations to actually get injured or killed by somebody in a stalking situation like this. But, given his alleged threats to Faith, I don't get it. I don't get how he's not, at some part of this conspiracy at some point. And certainly that note and the way that note was written, and maybe that's why the note was written that way, was because, in theory, he could have done it, or conversely, if he didn't do it, somebody was trying to point the finger at him and wrote that note, but didn't think about the other aspects, like the fact that the note was pristine. So they go and they arrive and they put this thing on top of everything. And then cops are like, well, how is there no blood on it?
Yeah. All right. That's a really good point, and I do share that sentiment that I kind of suspect that Eric Takoy Jones might know something more about this case. I think they cleared him because his DNA didn't match and he cooperated with law enforcement. So it's hard to really tell. Now, okay, before we jump to the elephant in the room, I guess, theory, one other theory I want to quickly go over is a random burglary, random rapist situation, completely unconnected to Faith's personal life. Someone just finding that opportunity and, making his bad intentions, come to fruition. Now, the problem I have with that is how lucky is this man to literally stumble upon the apartment that's unlocked? You know what I mean? What is he going through this neighborhood checking for unlocked doors? That's kind of strange. The other fact is, it seemed like it was personal in a sense. The note, we have the note, so I don't know, a random burglar or something like that leaving the note there kinda doesn't make much sense to me. And lastly, I would say from the general consensus that I've gathered while researching this case, I kinda had a sense that the culprit or culprits were, if not very familiar, then at least somewhat familiar with the layout of the apartment. And that kinda discredits a unrelated culprit in terms of Faith's personal life theory completely. So to just sort it all out and give my own statement, I don't think this culprit or culprits had never been in contact with Faith before. I feel like this person knew of Faith and had some sort of ill will towards her. So that's how I'm gonna wrap that theory up. Your thoughts on like whether or not this was someone completely unrelated to her at all?
Yeah, I mean, the odds seem against it, right? Like you said, just the fact that how would someone know the door was unlocked? So it would either have to be extremely random or, just not random. Then just thinking about, was anything taken? Like, what would be the motive, right? So you would think even like some horrible rapist, random creepo, who somehow no one else noticed trying doorknobs in the neighborhood, right? And even the lady downstairs who notices everything, as we'll mention in a second, does not notice anything else, any other noises. Yeah, it doesn't make sense at all to me. And there's like this convenient excuse that the door was unlocked, because otherwise there would have to be some kind of sign of a break-in, right?
Yeah.
Either the lock being picked or kicked in or otherwise. So yeah, it almost sounds like either the door was left open for somebody to get in, or she let somebody in.
Yeah. And this is a perfect link up to the elephant in the room, and that would be Karena Rosario, her knowing something more, not telling to the police. So to build a case against her, I want to begin with the cryptic messages sent at around 3:40 a.m. from Faith phone to Brandon, the ex-boyfriend of Faith. So Brandon Edwards, I believe his name was. So this man maybe was one of the reasons why this kill of Faith may have happened. Maybe they had some sort of an argument regarding Brandon. Maybe Karena Rosario, who seemed like she knew a lot of people in the town, she kind of organized a potential killing, or I don't know, did it herself, killed Faith when, she left the apartment with the doors unlocked, knowing damn well sure that someone's gonna come in and kill Faith. So maybe that's what's happening here. Other things that lead, that would give us suspicions in regards to Karena Rosario is the fact that her 911 call seemed a little bit odd to some people. She didn't want to touch, Faith, and then she kind of seemed too explainy, as you said. Some people believe that the 911 call wasn't genuine. And then lastly, I want to quickly mention the fact that the neighbor who saw Karena walk out of the apartment moments after finding her friend and roommate Faith Hedgepeth like raped and killed was texting. So she came out and she was texting, and that neighbor claimed that this person was not at all acting as someone who has just witnessed her close friend and roommate murdered in a very, crazy way. Now, I'm not gonna say I put a lot of weight towards this because I wasn't there, and I want to be fair to Karena Rosario. I wasn't there. I don't know how she was acting. But if that's the case, then I have my eyebrows raised. So yeah, this is like the case that I built for Karena, like the fact that she didn't close the door, and the fact she didn't lock the door, and the fact that she left the Trill bar saying she's tired, but then she comes back home and she's calling people trying to hook up the rest of the night to party somewhere else. All of a sudden not feeling tired. Maybe it was a ploy to get Faith back into the apartment. I don't know. I kind of am suspecting that their relationship wasn't as perfect as it was portrayed initially. So that's like what I have on Karena Rosario. Your take, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'll go backwards. I'll do it in the reverse order. So the thing with the neighbor was really damning to me, because on that 911 phone call, I mean, she sounds hysterical, right? Like, she sounds like she's just like she can't do anything.
Yeah.
She can't even help. She's just sobbing, everything, I mean, for good reason, right? But then, yeah, like only moments later, just calmly texting, and they said, what's her name, Marisol, also didn't seem like that shook up, like she was kind of crying softly, but they just didn't. I mean, like I said, this is all very, like, I guess, circumstantial, and like it's something that probably other people would say, well, you can turn it on and off. I mean, I know, I'll say myself, I've been known to have subdued emotional reactions to terrible things. So I can understand that not everybody, but like just the on and off nature of it,
Mm-hmm.
really, and then coupled with all the other kind of duplicitous things. So
Mm-hmm.
I left the door unlocked while my friend was asleep. I believe she was asleep. Well, like like even that extra little detail, like what do you mean you believe she's asleep? She's asleep or not? Like you believe she was asleep, so you left the door unlocked. Like it doesn't. That almost makes me think like the cops kind of backed her into a corner, yet somehow didn't get her to crack on that statement. Maybe that's why they kept coming back to it. Like, well, why did you do that again? But like she didn't. But then I guess I don't doubt that there are people that are like good natural actors. I'll say like it's weird. I don't know if you're familiar with sort of like our tabloid TV shows like Jerry Springer or Maury.
Of course.
Oh, okay, yeah. So those have been around forever. I mean, it's no wonder they become world famous. And I used to have people tell me that like everything on those shows was fake. And I'll tell you, I used to work with somebody who used to work on one of those shows.
Mm-hmm.
They said no, it's not fake. I mean, they're kind of incentivized to be there, but my like comment was that yeah, you could kind of tell when it was fake because most people are not good actors.
Oh yeah.
Most people aren't good actors, and maybe, but I think there are some people, especially psychopaths, who can kind of conjure up a good performance, as we've seen in some of these other cases where people have made these fake confessions or tried to hold the cops off. But even for them, they can't keep it. I think they underestimate what a marathon it is. And case in point, maybe Karena couldn't even keep it up for 20 more minutes. That she had
Yeah.
to kind of let her front down in front of the neighbor.
Yeah. See, that's a really good point here as well. I guess just to conclude, right? Because personally, there was a lot of people who got tested for DNA. We didn't mention the men that were seen on the CCTV leaving the trail alongside with Faith and Karena Rosario. We didn't talk about them. I believe they have been tested and have been accounted for. That's why they're not really publicly talked about too much. So just to conclude my thoughts regarding this homicide case, I will just say that I strongly suspect that someone in her really close circle knows more and won't say, whether it was, I don't know, Takoy Jones or Karena Rosario. I feel like they haven't said everything they were supposed to tell if they're gonna be truthful, especially Karena, since police is coming back to her on a regular basis. I feel like police think they know more. The police think that she knows more, and I would incline to believe them as well if that's the case. If they do have the same sentiment. So yeah, it's a tragic case. In closing, I'm just gonna say I feel like someone out there knows something more. And, maybe if Karena did plan it, maybe the plan was not for Faith to get killed. Because let's remember, the bottle to the head was the ending swing. Maybe Karena knew that someone was gonna enter the house, the apartment, but maybe she didn't knew how it will like turn out. So she's keeping quiet, and she's protecting maybe the Hispanic male, from the DNA profile that we have, who may be responsible, because I'm like heavily suspecting that person to be responsible. Maybe Karena knows who this man is, and she won't tell because she's gonna get definitely she's gonna get some sort of jail time for that. I would assume she's an unintentional accessory to the homicide. She's definitely getting jail time if she talks, so she has an incentive to not talk. To close out, that's where I'm gonna leave it at, dude. Any closing points before we sign out, man?
Yeah, I'll just finish off my thoughts that I think I'm hoping that they can use some of that same DNA triangulation that we've seen solve other cold cases like the Golden State Killer, where a relative has at some point used 23andMe or one of those other services, and that they can find somebody close enough and do some reconstruction. I will say, just in the ending part here, that always seemed like a really interesting job to me. Who knows? Maybe that's something I'll try to do someday. Is when you do that, it's a combination of like investigative and research skills, where you have to know something about DNA, but not, you don't have to be a scientist, but you have to know who to talk to. You have to do some investigation. You have to talk to some places, and then you essentially reconstruct someone's family tree, and then try to figure out who in that extended family tree could potentially have even like been the right age and, you know, been in that place, etc. It's kind of, for the right person, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm that right person, so who knows? Maybe that'll be one of my future career paths someday. But yeah, in closing, you know, I was really excited to talk about this case. Obviously, it's a big tragedy. I really do hope they can solve it using especially what we just mentioned. And when they do, I will be really curious to see whose names come up.
Yeah, same here. Same here. Really look, because the police are saying that they strongly believe even after 9 years they will solve this case, they will crack it. You know, I'm rooting for them. I really hope that that's the case. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining us this week. We're going to be closing off this week's episode. As always, leave a like, leave a subscribe if you enjoyed. Next week, we're coming back with some more interesting cases. This one was especially fascinating for me. So yeah, can't wait to see what's coming up for you guys next week. And yeah, as always, have a very wonderful rest of the week. I hope everyone is doing well, and we will see you shortly. For now, take care and stay safe. And as always, peace out.